Tonight we're having a really important, renowned activist that's going to join us tonight. So I thank everybody for coming. But I just want to let you know that I personally believe that queer history does a lot for our community. It helps us understand who we are. It gives us hope. It teaches us lessons that we can't learn otherwise. But more importantly, there was a quote in The Advocate, something to the lines of, we need to get our history out there from people who are still with us. And today we have one of those people who is still with us, and his name is Jack. So Jack is going to be talking about tonight about a undercover sting operation in Long Beach in January 1992 amid all the horrific things that were happening to gay men, being gay bashed and being murdered and being assaulted at that time in the 70s and 80s and early 90s. So let's have a round of applause and have Jack come in and say what he needs to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. I want to see a show of hands of people who lived in Long Beach most of the 1980s. Not a lot of you. That was a very changing time in terms of anti-gay violence. In the early 1980s, we had a police chief who didn't give a shit. And in 1986, we had Chief Binkley, who gave a great deal. And you probably don't remember who he is. I credit him a lot with his support of not only the gay community, but all minority groups. I was the chairman of his police chief's advisory committee. And I also was invited to teach at the Long Beach Police Academy, which we don't have anymore, but we had it then. And people would come to the academy to learn how to be a good police officer. It was extraordinary education. Was not a requirement, but people who wanted a leg up in getting a job in any police department went to the Long Beach Police Academy. So I got to teach 1 day per class, per session on everything LGBTQ. We had discussions. I brought them to the center in Long Beach, and we had panels, just people who came into the center, sat down, we talked to these new, they weren't recruits, but they were students, police students. And I took them to like a gay restaurant. There was a Papa Bear's on Broadway. I took them there. Just all kinds of things so that they would know what it was like in the gay community and what facilities we had. And I was sort of surprised at the attitude that these people had, say, of gay men. Very positive. I would ask them, well, when you think of gay people, what do you think of? And these officers, these students would say, well, they're nicely dressed. They work out all the time. They move in the area, housing in our communities, and they fix everything up. So it was really kind of interesting to see the positive feelings that these people had. So that was kind of neat. We also had, and I won't go into it because I'm going to stick on the sting operation, but just to give you a little bit of background. When I moved to Long Beach in 1975, I lived in Bixby Knolls, and I came down there a lot. And I saw a lot of violence, a lot of assaults and murders. I read about them. I interviewed people. I was very concerned about it. I don't know why, it's just part of who I am. And we had a murder in Long Beach in 1986 where the gay community, the board of directors, they called for a meeting with the police department, and we all went to a church. I don't know if I think it was a Metropolitan Community Church. And there were about 6 members of the Long Beach PD there, including the command staff, to discuss this violence. And about 200 members of the gay and lesbian community was there. The guest speaker, I'll call him Tommy because I won't use their real names, was the victim of a stabbing attempt. He was in a gay bar, I won't say which one, and somebody in the bar was kind of flirting with him. Somebody handsome, cute, nicely dressed, you know, touching him, almost groping him, and said to Tommy, "Let's go to your place." He drove Tommy to Tommy's place, and there he attempted to stab him. Took out a knife. It was in the kitchen area of the little apartment. And they had this kerfuffle and this physical thing, and he got stabbed a few times and made a break for it. And he was running down the street. When he reported this to the police department, they thought this sounded very familiar. And it turned out that there were 4 other cases where this person with this MO and this physical description, because now the police knew who he was, what he looked like. And it was so heartbreaking to see how people in bars can be solicited on a friendly level, like they're being very friendly, and yet they're going to be the victims of a assault or a murder. And I interviewed Tommy way back then, and I wrote about him in one of these books. But that was really, really, really difficult to deal with. At that time, the gay community started a hate crime reporting hotline, which I actually started and I monitored in my house for 6 years. We did that. Normally, when you're a victim of assault, you should go and report it to the police department. But the gay community didn't trust the police department. They wouldn't take reports. They would shine it off. Oh, there's nothing we can do. He's probably gotten away, you know, that's that. Well, that's all police misconduct. So I started the reporting hotline, so I would get the reports. I would make out the reports of every person that called. The first year, there were 42 assaults. And of course, a lot of them are not reported at all, right? So that's like the iceberg. But 42. I took that file and I took it to the chief of police, and I just sort of like threw it down the table. I was really pissed. And I said, every piece of paper represents someone who was beaten. And he responded. One of the things he did was to do this sting operation. Now, let me just explain a minute about the sting operation. Sting operation normally is when a bad guy sets up a mark who's a good guy and then manipulates that person and then boom, stings him and takes his money, assaults him or whatever. A reverse sting operation is where the police are the good guys and they're setting up some of their own people to be the victims to attract the assailants so they can nab them. Really, really touchy. The planning started about 2 months ahead of time. And I was called into the police department to review certain young officers to see who would be the good ones that would be vulnerable, look vulnerable. And I told the Lieutenant Wood, well, they should be young, maybe 20-ish. They should be slight builds so they look like they can't defend themselves. And, they should wear the gay uniform, white T-shirt, 501 jeans, white tennis shoes. And they did. So we had these 2 decoys picked out. Then about a few days before the actual setup of the sting, we had a meeting at the police department, and there were about 20 police officers in this room, kind of like this. Nobody in uniform, because these were all undercover. They're all detectives, I guess, but there's no uniforms. And we started talking about what was going to happen on the sting, how it was going to go. And we covered certain things like, okay, if someone gets hurt, so-and-so is going to take them to the hospital, and it's going to be St. Mary's. If the perpetrator is caught, who's going to take him, arrest him, who's going to take the report, and where is he going to go, in what car? Everything was planned out to a T. Because you have to think about this. They're going to put 2 of the young officers out there hoping that they're going to be assaulted or attempted to. Now, we would set up the sting so that there would be like a command center, and the first site was going to be Ripples, which is not there anymore, but you all know where Ripples was. And so we talked a lot about how the decoys should behave. And I made a joke, and I said, well, they should walk like John Wayne needing to take a crap. And I said, well, a lot of gay people wear the keys on the belt. And one officer says, why do they do that? I said, well, if you wear it on the left side, you're a top. If you wear it on the right side, you're a bottom. So you can sort of connect with people, people know kind of who you are. And I said, hey, Jack, you're wearing yours on the right. Does that mean you get fucked a lot? I said, no, dummy. I wear it on the right because I'm right-handed. So, and then somebody yelled out, well, what about Vladimir? Where's Sarge Vladimir? Because he wasn't in the room, and I didn't know who Vladimir was. And everybody just laughed. And somebody says, you remember Vladimir last Sunday, and you know what happened there? And everybody laughed. It was like an inside joke. And I didn't raise any question, well, who's Vladimir? But it was a big thing. So we're setting up at Ripples, and the command car, which was a van, is called the Box. So I was in the box with Lieutenant Wood. They had the reel-to-reel tape machines back then. This was 1992. Everybody had the headsets on. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's about 4. There's about 5 of us in the box. Then they set up the eyes, and these were cars that were about a half a block north, south, east, and west, the cardinal directions from Ripples. And the box was across the street. So the decoys get out, and they're called the footballs. There's the blonde football and the brown football. And the blonde football had his gay uniform on, but he had a sort of an oversized sweatshirt to hide where he was carrying the gun. Like he had a little fanny pack with a gun in it. And the brown football had the wire, the microphone, so they can pick up. And all these people. Now, in addition to the 4 cars, there was 2 roving cars. And the cars are called Victor 1, Victor 2, Victor 3. And then you had police officers on foot all around the area. 20 of them. 20 people involved in the sting operation. This was a big deal. So the officers the decoys, the footballs, are walking around in front of Ripples. And there's 3 guys that are approaching from the west to the east on Ocean Boulevard. And you hear the chatter, because I could hear what everybody was saying. Okay, there's 3 suspects coming from the west. They look about 20. And you guys, does Victor 3 see those? I I got him the box, I got him. So they're following all these people, and they cross the street towards the Ripple side, and they're approaching Ripples and approaching the decoy. And at that time, just prior to that, I had the decoys. I asked the lieutenant, could you split them up? Because if there's two together, they're not going to be as vulnerable looking. So I had the lieutenant, he says, okay. So they had the brown football and the blonde football go in different directions. And one of them was approaching these three guys. And they come up and and they want to start a fight with this police officer who looks like, a 20-year-old kid, skinny little kid. He said, oh, faggot, I'll beat the crap out of you. And he was there was three of them, and two were holding like this one guy back who appeared to be drunk. And I could hear everything. And the decoy says, you want to fight? Come over, I'll fight you. And the guy was going to take a punch at him. The other two pulled him back. They came so close to getting arrested. As soon as they passed Ripples, then Victor 3 on the east side picked them up and detained them to get them out of the way. So they were walking around. They're trying to see who's going to attack them. A Coke bottle was thrown at one. And they were strolling into Ripples. Now, it was a Friday night. I insisted they do this a Friday or Saturday, and they picked Friday. And Ripples was really busy. So they go in the bar, and one decoy says to the other, God, what a bunch of weirdos. I just sort of shoved it off, because here's two guys pretending to be gay, and all their brother officers are going to say, so they had to come across being sort of macho. Okay, that was all right. But I noticed that the lieutenant on another channel sent a runner to the two decoys, say, cool it, on the language. Jack's listening. So, but for the most part, they were cooperating. And we got a call. Let's see. So there was no arrest made at Ripples. And I was looking across the street where the parking lot is. It used to be a cruisy place. And I remember just about a week before, 2 weeks before, there were two incidents at Ripples. One was a young man leaving Ripples. This is part of the reason why I picked Ripples. He was coming out of the bar late at night, maybe 1 a.m, with his girlfriend. And he turned to go north on Granada, just about a half block as far as he got. And these people attacked him. He kept yelling, I'm not gay. I'm not gay. I just like the music. I'm not gay. They beat the shit out of him. His mother called the hotline, which I answered, and told me exactly what happened. He was in intensive care. I don't know if he survived. Then there was another incident the same week in the parking lot across the street of Ripples, which was a very popular cruising area. And, one of the things I would tell people in the police department when I was doing the class is about cruising areas. There's nothing wrong with cruising. There's nothing wrong with making contacts in public. Sex should be private, but if you want to go there and make contacts, no problem. And I had to remind these police students that everything a man and a woman could do in public, two gay men or two women can do in public. And I said, oh yeah, that's right. So this one young man was cruising in the parking lot talking to people. And he was approached by two guys, and they wanted to know what he was doing there. And his name was Rick, and he was Jewish. He said, I'm half Jewish. I actually brought him to my house, and I interviewed him, and I recorded him, and I wrote about him in my book here. He was just assaulted. He wore glasses. You could see how the glasses were pushed in his face, and he had rings in his face from his glasses. And he was so furious, and he said to me, I didn't get that hurt, but I'm really pissed. And so he started to join the groups in Long Beach on the police committee and to work towards finding some resolution. So we go to Que Sera Sera. Does anybody know that lesbian gym? Is that on 4th or 7th? Yeah, 7th near Cherry. And so we set up the decoys there. There wasn't much action. There weren't people milling around or anything. But I remember a woman called the hotline who was coming out of Que Sera Sera, and somebody hit her in the face with a lead pipe. She had reconstructive surgery. There were so many incidents that I just kept dumping these on the police chief's desk. I would meet with him once a month. Look at these people. And a lot of it, the police officers responding did not take a report. That means it never happened. Never happened. And there was no way to pursue anybody. There was no evidence. So these officers, when I submitted the report, the chief knew who it was that responded to the call because he just looks in the log and sees who went on that call at that location and who didn't take the report. And they get a letter in their file or they get retrained or they get fired. When I told you Chief Binkley came in to the department in 1986, he fired 83 police officers. He was there to clean up the department. The rank and file didn't like him very much. But all of the minority groups, including the gay community, loved him because of being very responsive. So there was no instance at Que Sera Sera, so we went to the mine shaft. We actually went there twice because there's so much going on. And the box pulls up in front of the mine shaft, and there were no cars there. I guess they had the police, had the cars out of the way or no parking or something because they knew the police sting was going there. They didn't want a lot of innocent people in the way there. So the van parked right across the street from the doorway to the mine shaft, and there's a light. A big light shining down on the sidewalk and the street right in front. I say that because as soon as we parked, I looked there and I said, oh, fuck. There's a drunk. There's a drunk rolling in the gutter right in front of the doorway. And I said to the lieutenant, you got to get him out of there. He had this big coat on. He's just, unshaven, the straggly hair, it was just... he was going to get hurt. And so as the lieutenant didn't say anything to me, I said, he's got to get out of there. So within a few minutes when we arrived, somebody comes up to the drunk and starts looking in his pockets, trying to rob him. And then he takes off. And the police nabbed the would-be pickpocketers there. I don't know if they got arrested or not. But... there was these two guys that came out of the bar, and they stood right there in front of the door, and they're looking at this guy laying in the gutter. It was wet, and the drunk was like laying sideways, and there was a bread roll in the gutter. They must have been like having hors d'oeuvres or something there. So the guy, eats the stuff, and these two guys are standing there. Oh, that's gross. Jeez. And then it dawned on me. I heard what the two guys said. The guy in the gutter was a police officer. It was Vladimir. It was Sergeant Vladimir in his costume getting into this and laying in the gutter because the lieutenant wanted a gun by the front door. And we had people driving by yelling "fag" and this and that, and there was a lot of activity going on there. We didn't make any arrests there. We were there probably almost an hour. The sting operation went from 7 p.m. all the way to 2:30 in the morning. So that's a lot, but it went by fast. I was just fascinated with all the stuff going on. So then the next stop was, you guys, there was a straight bar. I think it was called Yankee Doodle. Does that even ring a bell? We pulled up there, and I thought to myself, this is not one of the bars I gave the lieutenant, you know? I mean, why would there be an attempted gay bashing at a straight club? I don't know why they picked that, but they stuck that one in there. And so they sent out the decoys, and they're walking around separately because I had requested that before, so they're separate. And I said, Lieutenant, these don't look like gay people. These are just people walking around. These are just men, probably straight men, walking around, a straight bar, disco, whatever that place was. And I said, they should at least be together. Okay, footballs, get together, walk together side by side. And so they come together and they start walking around. And I said, Sergeant, this is not going to work. It looks like two straight men in front of a straight bar walking around. They need to hold hands. And, okay, guys, hold hands. And so these two young officers, 20 each, they're holding hands. And I didn't know the comfort level of these two guys. I mean, they're police officers. They just joined the force. And here they are acting like gay men, holding hands in front of a straight bar. It was just ridiculous. I just said it was a waste of time. But I do know that when our evening ended, the two guys, I was standing next to the lieutenant, the two guys came over and says, Lieutenant, you got to destroy that video. You got to destroy that video. Because they were going to tease these guys to death, you know. And I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. I don't know if he took care of it or not. I don't know. But we also went to, I think it was a bar called Little Lucy's. Is that right, Doug? Little Lucy's? And we did there and that. So all in all, we didn't have any gay bashings. We had some attempted assaults. I would say 2 attempted assaults. And the Coke bottle thing being thrown at one of the officers, that was an assault. But what really came out of it is the police officers knew what we go through with all of the harassment, cars driving by, hey, faggot this, faggot that, you know, people walking by, you know, trying to push people out of the way. It wasn't safe. It just wasn't safe. And from my studies on the hotline, it was always people coming to the gay business district, like Broadway, the Broadway corridor, and following people when they left the bar late at night or early in the morning, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Why? Because they're intoxicated, they're not going to resist, they're not afraid of being caught by the police. Who's going to, you know, no faggot's going to come out and report that he's been beat up coming out of a gay bar. So that was a big deal. And it, you know, and then the other thing about people villains going to a gay bar, pretending they're gay, acting like they're gay, and going home with somebody. They won't ever invite the person to their place if they lived in that area, because what are you going to do with the body? They will go to the person's house because then they're not concerned. And I had a roommate, a young black man who was just a sweetheart, just a nice, everybody in the gay community loved him. He was so helpful. He stayed with me about 6 months. And Then he saved up enough money to get his own little apartment, which was near the mine shaft, a few blocks from there. And within about 2 weeks of moving out of my place, he was at the mine shaft. And somebody came up to him and flirted with him, and he flirted back. Oh, let's go to your place. And the guy took him to his place. They walked together to Darnell's place. And he was stripped, tied up to a chair in his kitchen, and lit on fire. He was poured gasoline on it, lit him on fire. He was burned alive. And I wish I had kept the memorial service paper, and but I didn't. All these things I'm talking about all these problems with violence, basically ended in the early 90s. Now, you can still have violence and this, that, but I mean, the police chief really put the kibosh on lazy cops, on disrespectful cops, cops engaged in misconduct. Firing 83 officers is a big, big deal in Long Beach. There's not that many. There's several hundred, but there's not that many. You can fire that many. And of course, the police officers union saved a lot of those people, I'm sure. But we did everything we could, and I wasn't the only one. I was the only one that monitored the hotline, but we did other things. We had a civilian teams project that patrolled the Broadway corridor late night. We were trained by the police on how to do that, and we worked with the police. It was just a lot of things that we did to quell the violence. And it really, really worked. And I don't want to have anybody leave here with the idea, oh God, it's going to be so dangerous going to a bar or something. Really not. I mean, you should use common sense, right? You shouldn't walk alone when you leave a bar. You shouldn't pick up people at a bar like that. Let them come to your place. Get a number. Contact them later, if it's worth anything to you. So I want to say that one thing that helps relieve anti-gay violence is voting. And I don't care, Republican, Democrat, Independent. We have to support the things that protect gay and lesbian people, transgendered people, and the measures that do that. And I still run across people, oh, I don't want to vote. That's it. That's where we are. And we have to do it, and we have to get our friends to do it. No matter what, we have to vote, because we'll lose our freedom and our independence and our rights. So thank you for listening.